Welcome to the village. Alright, so today's episode, we are back with Carla, who is now officially the head athletic trainer at Amsterdam High School. Right, Carla?
Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, how's it going so far?
So far, so good. I mean, we've only had some workouts. Transitioning offices, I'm going from a small room to a room that's 3 times the size of my old office. So it's going to be nice for the kids to have a rehab space and all the awesome equipment that we already have and not to be tripping over one another.
Yeah, it's good to have a good big space, because last time I was with you, it was the other off. So yeah, it's always good to upgrade. Yeah.
It was a nice surprise.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you upgraded, then your space should upgrade too, rightfully so. So today, we're going to continue with the Carla series and kind of overlap with some back to school topics that we've been doing too. So back to school, always back to sports, right?
Yep.
In fact, sports kind of starts before back to school.
2 weeks before school starts. So officially this year, football can start on Saturday, August 20th. And then the rest of the sports start on Monday, the 22nd.
So yeah, they get right back to it prior to even school, which is good because get into the swing of things, get into routine before schoolwork starts, right?
Yep. Give them a little preview of what's about to happen for them for 2 weeks of just practices and them being able to focus on just practices, because when they do get back to school, we always emphasize your student athlete, student comes first.
And are there still the requirements for grades and things in order to participate?
Yeah, they know if they don't get a certain GPA or they're not passing a certain amount of classes come the 5-week mark that they're now ineligible to play, or they have to go to academic study hall.
Yeah, which is fair because exactly, you have to focus on school. You got to get your grades in and do your learning. Good. That's exactly why we want to talk about all the benefits, though, of sports and why we encourage kids to be involved in athletics, whether it's single sports or on your own or trying to be active in a team sort of way is really beneficial. So I just wanted to introduce by just talking about how the physical and psychosocial benefits of sports participation has actually been well documented. Participation in sports has actually been increasing, prior to the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, it was kind of a big shutdown like everything else, but we're getting back into somewhat normalcy, you would say?
We're trying to get there. I think last year was the first year where we had a full slate of sports. Okay. And there was still some parents who were a little gun shy about letting their kids play. In the fall, we still had the mask wearing at school, and they had to wear the mask on the bus. They didn't have to wear them for outside participation, but like our volleyball team and our basketball team had to wear the masks while they were playing.
While they were playing. I didn't realize the basketball team was doing that. Yeah,
so volleyball and basketball had to. Volleyball, not as cardiovascular as basketball, so they didn't really have an issue with wearing the mask while trying to play. But the basketball players, they're always trying to take them off, trying to breathe. Yeah. Sometimes the mask was sticking to their face.
Yeah, with the sweating, and it's a tough thing to have to wear a mask while exercising.
Yeah,
for sure.
So we had a lot of kids shy away from that. This year will be our first full year of not having to make the kids wear the mask. They can still choose to wear them if they want, but they're not required to.
That's a nice step up.
I think we're going to see our numbers increase. My football coach just said, last year we had just under 100 kids between our varsity, JV, and our modified, and this year we're up to 130.
Okay. So that's a significant...
Yeah, we're getting there, and we're looking for a whole slate of teams. Last year we had a couple sports where we didn't have a JV team, and other schools couldn't field like a varsity team.
Yeah.
So we didn't have all the levels, but I think this year you're going to start to see that return to normalcy with the numbers.
That's a lot of what the kids depend on, because that's one of the major benefits, right? Like we said, physical and psychosocial. Yeah. And you see a lot of that psychosocial aspect of how much the kids love it and love being there and how it helps with their mental well-being, right?
Yeah, and that's for some kids, it's they need the team more than the team needs them. Whatever's going on at home, this is their way to get away from whatever might be going on in their home or in class. And I have kids who, when they step on that field, they're a totally different kid. So I see one side of them when, they're either in my office or I see them during the school day, and they cross that line and they step on that field or that court. They're a completely different kid. And their mood just changes instantly. And it's just like, you know what? Go for it. Mm-hmm. go succeed, go have fun. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're supposed to be doing when you're a teenager.
Yeah, you're supposed to be having fun, being around your peers. That peer experience is so important, and feeling like you belong.
Right.
That independence of that learning who you are. I think that individuality kind of happens, I would say, more in like college years and in your 20s as you're really discovering who you are. But that trying to be part of something and belonging, whether it's a clique or a group or an identity, wearing your team uniform and feeling proud, making those friends. That's so important to teenagers. It's just incredible. And it's necessary. It's not that you can change that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so, I use this term a lot recently, but it's so special to be a part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just coming off the Mohawk season with that team, and I've been with the team for 12 years, this was one of the most special teams I've ever had the privilege to be a part of. Just from day one, it seemed like they clicked. You know, they had their own personalities, but when they played, it was all about the team. There was no I guy, like, oh, I'm going to do it. Every day there's a different hero. And guys who didn't play, they were the best bench supporters. Like, hey, you got this. Pick it up. You know, we'll be fine. Get the next at bat. Next time when you go out and pitch, you got this. Like, just such a brotherhood that you don't get to see. And it kind of reminded me of when I was with the Broad Almond Perth team back in 2011 when they won the state championship. Those kids were just so close, and their circle of trust was very limited to the coaching staff, each other, the support staff. That's what made them successful. And I think when you have that brotherhood or that sisterhood where you have these teams who rely on each other to pick each other up when things don't go right. I'm not talking about just like on the field, like when stuff goes wrong in life too. As our football team, our coach says, you know, this year it's going to be 45 hearts beat as one. We're one team.
Yeah.
And, you know, we pick each other up. These are your brothers.
Yeah.
You know, your coaches are like your fathers. And then, you know, you got me hanging out there in the wings.
Yeah. Like a cousin or a sister.
Yeah, this is your family.
Yeah. So who do you spend time with and who do you depend on and who do you make a plan with? That's nothing short of family. And that's such a great life lesson because teamwork, you know, learning to be there for each other, not to be selfish, to think about somebody else and how to coordinate a plan of action so it works. Because like you just said, the best teams are the ones that work together the best.
Yeah, and I go back to when I played in high school. You know, we always laughed at my coach at the time, but our motto was pull for each other and play together. And that's what you're trying to do. And these become life lessons. Like, you know, teamwork. When you get a job, you can't just be solo. You have to rely on your coworkers to be a part of your team. You know, determination, being successful, but also having to deal with adversity.
Right.
Because everything isn't sunshine and rainbows.
And that's when you really think about how to work together in adverse times in life. Even like in medicine, it's the most difficult situation. Like think about when they go to a code. There's a whole team. Yep. Right? There's the doctors, the nurses, the techs. Everyone has to have a role and communicate well and help each other and not put each other down or yell at each other, but have a plan. Right. And you're trained for that plan so that there can be a successful outcome as successful as possible. And that's like such an adverse situation, right? When someone's life depends on what's going on. So these are like life lessons that start at a young age.
That's mainly why we encourage kids to participate in athletics, because it provides you all these life lessons.
Yeah.
Our coach for the Mohawks, Coach Griffin, every game he'll go out there and he'll talk to the team, and he always has some sort of life lesson to give them. And one of my high schoolers was shadowing with me this summer. We were at team camp with football, and I said to him, I go, what did coach say? There's 3 responses to every statement your coach says. I said, what are they? And he turned around without missing a beat. Yes, sir. No, sir. I don't understand the question, sir. And I said, what happens when you face adversity? What are your 3 options? He goes, you either run from it, you fight it, or you overcome it. And it's just like, these are what sports are teaching kids. What are we going to do when push comes to shove?
Absolutely. That's a great way to think about it. There's also noticing if there's something going on with your teammate. Are they overtired? Are they depressed? Are they having a bad day? Talking about it? Or noticing things like this is how you pick up on like mood disorders or drug problems. There's another set of eyes, whether it be the coach or the trainer or one of your peers.
You know, I'll say our kids, at Amsterdam, they always look out for each other. And they'll be the first ones to tell me if something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you need to go check out Johnny, or you need to go check out Susie.
Yeah.
Something's not right over there.
Yeah.
And I know that, I have the relationship with the kids and the rapport with the kids to know, okay, this is what they are normally. What's going on right now?
Yeah.
And to know a little bit about their home life and to know the background in a lot of these kids and their situations helps me kind of deal with, okay, this is normal for them. This is why this is happening. But also to say, something's not right.
Yeah.
We need to check them out. And I will say my coaching staff is fantastic about that.
Yeah.
Whether it's football where I have 10 other sets of eyes or soccer where I have one, we all work together to try and help each other out.
For sure. It's great to keep in mind that these athletes are important. Their lives are important. Yeah, so this is a really important benefit is these life skills for these kids and sportsmanship. There's also just like a work ethic, right? Following the rules, being on time, setting goals, having respect for each other and for the coach and anybody who is kind of you're answerable to. You have to be on time. You have to follow the rules of the game. You have to follow the rules of practice.
Because life doesn't work that way.
Right.
You show up late to work.
Yeah.
You're going to get fired.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's not that you're going to get fired at practice, but there's usually a consequence that comes along with it. Unfortunately, we're in a different time period with these kids than even 20 years ago when I graduated. I didn't have to, thankfully get a job because my parents were able to support us and say, hey, go play your athletics.
Yeah.
We got you. And I had friends who were the same way. And their parents said, as long as you're playing sports, you don't have to get a job.
Yeah.
And now here we are about 20 years later, and that's not the same situation with these kids. Some of them have to work to help support their family. So now they're making a choice between, am I going to work? Am I going to practice? Am I going to the game?
Yeah.
And I know they all try and balance it out. But at some point, it just becomes too much for them. And how do you punish a kid for going to work so they can put food on their table? You can't.
Time management is hard, and it's almost impossible to balance that. And then there's school.
Yep.
Because they got to do their schoolwork to get any of this done.
Yep. And homework, and then you got to make sure they're eating and sleeping. I
mean, life is hard for a lot of these kids. It's tough to have to do all these things when really your job as a kid should be to go to school and learn these things through sports, but it's not always the case. I mean, we'll hope for the best for kids who don't have that opportunity and to get through this so that they could have opportunities later on, do well in school and to go to college or go to trade school or do whatever they need to do to actually support their families in a much better way.
Right. That's where my role comes in to remind them, while athletics is a huge part of your life, when it comes to the injury side, I got to make sure that you're still functional later on in life.
Right.
To be a productive adult.
Yeah.
And sometimes at this age, they don't understand it. We go 10 years in the future and they turn around and they thank you for protecting them.
Yeah, because life passed by quick. Before you know it, you're an adult and you need to preserve yourself as much as possible for actually getting these things done.
Right.
The other thing, thinking about with sports, there's also like an emotional regulation. The American Academy of Pediatrics talks about these things. Kids with disabilities who may have more issues with this, whether it be ADHD or anxiety or being on the autism spectrum and having problems with emotional regulation or social skills, but even just being a teenager, baseline, you have issues with emotional regulation, right?
100%.
So
100%.
this is an outlet, a circumstance,
right?
Where this
because you can't be at football practice and you get mad and you go punch somebody. That's not cool.
Yeah.
So you got to find a different way to channel that aggression or that anger that you have. Again, knowing the kids the way that I know them, kind of pick up on some of the stuff. Whether they're super anxious or they do have the mood disorders. Important to know that, to be like, okay, we got to talk to this kid differently than we're going to talk to the rest of it. Because if you turn around and you yell at this kid, he's just going to shut down. Or she's just going to shut down. Where other kids on the team might just say, whatever, you yelled at me, whatever, not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of navigating the different personalities as well.
Exactly. And personalities they're already there. I feel like they're already there as a baby. Teenagers, it comes out in a big way.
Amsterdam, we're lucky enough that we do have an inclusion committee and we do have unified sports. So a lot of our disabled athletes and our athletes with autism get to participate in sports, in bowling and basketball. We did a Unified Olympics this past year, and those kids loved it. They ate it up, and the entire school came into the gym and watched them compete and cheered them on. And they showed it on the smart boards in the different classrooms. We had the pep band there. I mean, for these kids, it was Christmas for them.
It's huge, and it's so great to see. I get so excited when I hear that kids are involved with sports or something that's keeping them away from social isolation, especially like if there's a kid who has a disability, that their socialization is more impaired or challenging in some way. Being isolated, like I said, as a teenager is the worst. And kids on the spectrum, they may not have the same way of showing it. They have different ways of showing it. There's so many kids that parents says, oh, my kid such and such has these panic attacks, or they just flip out, or they get so angry. And that's because there's something going on and they don't always know how to verbalize it. Being a teenager, it's not always easy to verbalize. And then having a social issue, you can't verbalize as well. Like, that's the whole thing with kids on the spectrum, is they're just not able to socially engage or really express themselves. And that leads to a lot of, I mean, if you're not able to do something that you really want to do, it's frustrating, right? And you act out. So giving them something that they can do and then they feel proud, accomplished, and important. Everybody wants to feel important, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, our unified basketball team actually won our division in the basketball championship, and being there and watching those kids, you know, they were just so excited. Jess Farini does a fantastic job with that whole unified program, from the unified PE, the unified basketball, to the unified bowling, you know, also while coaching varsity soccer, JV basketball, and helping out with lacrosse. Unified is where her niche is, and she does a fantastic job with those kids, and even pulling in our other students to get them to work with our special ed kids, and to see 20 to 50 kids working with our special ed kids. It's very heartwarming.
It is.
And they love it. They love it, just to see them interact with one another. It's an amazing thing to see if you haven't been a part of it as an outsider, as somebody who's on the inside and watching this. You know, it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
watching them, and when we did the unified basketball game during school, and brought the pep band in and brought the kids in, and just watching their faces light up.
It's so great to see kids happy, because then you feel like accomplished, like as the adult, that something's going right with what you did and what we did, or there's hope, right? We have some hope that these kids are going to make things better for all of us. That's just awesome to have these programs. Do most of the school districts, do you know, have something for developmentally?
Not all the school districts do.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably like a dozen or so, between a dozen and 2 dozen in this area that have the different teams. It's a lot of our bigger schools, some smaller schools, but I would say every school should have a program like that.
They should. And, you know, not all the kids, I'm thinking about particularly the kids on the spectrum. Not every kid on the spectrum is really impaired to the degree where they need to be secluded into their own sport or even classroom. They can be part of it. They have some difficulties that need to be addressed, but they can just be right there with everybody else. Yeah. But then there's kids with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophies, where their physical abilities are not the same as the kids. But they're able enough where they can play sports, but to put them on a team with kids who don't have a physical disability, that's a little difficult.
We had a girl, she was kind of like our manager with Down syndrome for our soccer team. And that was during COVID year. But she just loved being a part of the team. And she would come over and she would talk to me, and then she would talk to our athletic director and talk to one of our other coaches, and we would just joke around with her. So our joke was, because she was the girls' soccer team, is tell the girls that, you know, in order to we want to win, no boys. And so one of our coaches told her that. She went over and she goes, hey, you want to win? No boys. No boys. And she's just the sweetest girl. And she enjoyed being around the girls. And the girls didn't treat her like she was different. It was, hey, she's one of us. And during the one of our last games, we let her play like the last 2 minutes of each half. She loved it. And we even tried to get her to score a goal, but she was going the wrong way on the field. But, you know, so, and it wasn't like You know, it was the winning.
Professional soccer players have done that.
We weren't going to win anything.
Yeah.
It was just, hey, we want this kid to have this experience.
Exactly.
And she probably still talks about it. I know she enjoyed it, and I saw her a couple times. I see her in school, and she always comes, says hi, gives me a hug.
Aww.
And she loves it. And I think if we can make this meaningful for our kids, they're going to have great experiences to take home.
Yeah, lifelong. You can still talk till this day about things you experienced in high school. Those are some unforgettable days of your life.
Yeah.
You know? So the other girls, they were good to her. They were kind to her.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like, hey, we gotta pay attention. We gotta focus. And I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. Just, I got her. She's sitting with me on the golf cart.
Yeah, and you do learn about other kids and their disabilities. When I was in high school, I wasn't a big athlete or barely an athlete by any means. I tried it for a short stint. There was one girl. She was a year ahead of me in school. She was in every single sport possible, and she was deaf. She was mute. I don't know what the story is with her. As long as I knew her in elementary school, this was an issue she had. She was beautiful. I mean, she looked like a model. She was in every sport, and all of her teammates, a lot of them became good friends with her, and she had a lot of close friends. She was very popular. You know, I don't think you have to always be able to speak to emit a radiance about you. So she was very sweet and very well liked and loved by the coaches, teachers, and her peers. Anyone who interacted with her learned about somebody with a disability. And we even had a American Sign Language club in school you could join. And if you joined, then you learn how to speak to her. You learn how to communicate with her better. And this is something I took for granted back then, but thinking about it, so many kids in our school who were in her grade or around her grade who had anything to do with this girl learned a skill. They learned how to communicate with somebody whose language was different or whose ability was different. So the whole school adapted to this one special girl. Every school can have some sort of similar story, right? Of somebody who's different and how to recognize it, appreciate it, and adapt to people's differences. And with her, athletics was a huge thing. If you wanted to get to know her, you were on her sports team, basically. And that's how it worked. So it's great. Like the story of the child with Down syndrome you mentioned. And that's the other thing. Like, you're not going to learn these skills being on social media and on video games all day, right?
No, and I always say to the kids, like, sometimes, like, trying to communicate with them, very difficult because they've been behind a screen for so long.
Yeah.
And with a lot of them, that's how they communicate.
Yeah.
So, like, if I need to have a conversation, you know, sometimes it's easier for us to text because that's how they know how to talk. To verbally have a conversation with some of these kids, they don't know how to say it. And just watching them talk to each other sometimes, I'm like, hold up. I go, time out. We can't talk to each other like this.
Like you were saying, the issue with the inability to communicate when you're not around people. We could talk for hours about this, social media and video games. I mean, it gets to you. It brings you down, staring at a screen or seeing things that are not true. I think that social media is important to communicate and learn and keep up with things to a degree.
Connect with people who are across the country, which I think that was it. Is intentionally set out for.
Across the world.
And now, I mean, I remember when Facebook first started, and the only way you could get a Facebook was to have a college email address. You know, one of my very good friends, like, friend requested me, and I was like, and then that's when it just started catching on, everybody.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to the middle schoolers, the health teachers had me come in and speak to the kids about mental health and everything. And I said to them, you're very brave behind a screen. You will go up and you will tell anything behind a screen when you're brave behind a keyboard. You know, you don't care if you go up to somebody and tell them, you suck, you're ugly, I hope you die. But you would never, I said, you would never come up to my face and say that, because what would happen? And the kids just looked at me, and I said, what would happen if you went up to somebody on the street and you said that exact phrase that you typed? They go, they'd probably punch me. I said, you'd probably be right. I said, but that's why you don't say it to them. Right. And I said, don't think I don't know. I go, you got your Facebook, you got your Snapchat, you got Twitter, you got Visco, you have your Finsta, you have Be Real. And they're just looking at me.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know all this?
I know a lot of things.
It's like, listen, I keep up.
You have to when you're around these youngsters all day.
And like I learned their language. And so somebody said to me, as I was talking, I was explaining all the cool supplies I got. I keep saying it. Like I've said it to our football players. I've said it to our soccer players. I've said it to most of our teams. And they go, you keep saying these words. Like, what do they mean? And I was just like, yeah, I have to ask myself sometimes. Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah.
But then once I learn what it means, and as long as it's in an okay connotation, I'll throw it back at them.
Mm-hmm.
So, when one of my kids dislocated his elbow last year, he looked at me, he goes, "It's broken?" I said, "I don't think it's broken. It's dislocated." He goes, "For real?" I said, "For real." He goes, "For real, for real." I said, for real, buddy. It is dislocated. And, he started laughing. He goes, "All right, so you're going to put the tape on there?" I said, "Yep, I'm going to put the tape on there." He goes, "Am I going to look drip?" I said, "I'm sure going to try, buddy. Sure going to try." And everybody goes, "What's drip mean?" I go, "It means you look cool."
What? So sometimes you have to use context clues.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll just ask them, and my kids will just tell me what it means.
They're teaching you.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, so now I pay attention to what they're saying. Is it appropriate? Because if it's not appropriate, I stop that.
Drip. Okay.
Yeah,
you just taught me some. This is the first time that I've heard this. I haven't heard this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Cap, no cap, whether you're lying or you're truthful. Okay. That's that.
So you're learning. You're with them so much. I didn't know about drip or cap.
Yeah. No cap. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, everybody, you learn more. Listening to us, you will learn things.
I tell a lot of people I speak fluent teenager.
Yeah.
It's like another language for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and some of the things we think they still say, they don't say anymore.
No, it's like, if you said that, they look at you like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just use normal words, and they'll tell me, "Stop, you're using too big of words." I laughed the one day I had a bunch of boys in my office. They're like, "Oh, I'm so tired." I said, "Well, if you weren't gallivanting around the city." And they looked at me like I was crazy. And they go, "What is gallivanting?" I said, "No, boys, it's gallivanting with a V." And then I explained it to them, and they're just like...
And at our age, that's like, we use that a lot, and it's a fun word. I love saying gallivanting.
Right.
Lollygagging.
Yeah. Like my English teacher in high school, her favorite word was kerfuffle. Like that was her favorite word.
Girl I work with, she's in her mid-40s, and she uses kerfuffle. When you said that, I thought of her right away.
Yeah. I'll use words, and Carla, stop using big words, they tell me.
We're using multi-syllable words, whereas these kids like drip, cat.
Yeah.
What else?
Like some of them I text and I'll get, "Yeah, yes, sir." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Can we have like an actual conversation here?" And I saw something online the other day that said, "You're old, not by the way you look, but because you text in complete sentences."
Oh, I get made fun of because I use appropriate...
punctuation?
Appropriate punctuation.
Yeah.
I put periods at the end of sentences, and people are like,
"Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's a sentence."
Right.
Lose your ability to write now. You already can't speak.
Right.
Oh, kids. Fun times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then not knowing how to spell either. Oh my God, it's another one.
Oh, yeah. I spell a lot of things for them.
It's like there's an H in there, or a G, or a J.
Yeah,
a U. Forget U.
Yeah, because on a piece of paper, there's no spell check.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of them I'll be like, "This is how you spell it." Because it's the same body part over and over again.
Do they still have spelling bees?
They do at the elementary school level.
They need to continue them through high school to keep up with that. So yeah, definitely this is a great outlet, and look, you're learning all sorts of things. Everybody's learning. It's good for shy kids to be less shy, anxious kids to be less anxious, but we'll talk about how that can go too far, but because sometimes there's going beyond. So like you said, when we're now focusing on sports and a job, and then maybe putting the big picture of, well, you got to get your high school diploma, you got to do a good job in school, you're overscheduling, you're maybe burning out, you're stressed, whether it's because you don't have enough time or because you're now expected to do all these things from your parents or yourself. You're having these high expectations of yourself, and what happens then?
And I always go back to Coach Griff and his insightful sayings. One of the things he always tells kids is high achievers hate mediocrity and mediocrity hates high achievers.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mix these two on a team,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it gets kind of, so those perfectionists, those high achievers, like, you know, it makes that anxiety go up.
Yeah, because there's expectations, whether it's from the family you're from, maybe dad or mom or a highly achieving person or athlete or didn't achieve what they wanted to. There's a lot of living vicariously situations. Or then there's the kid. I've got 2 patients. They're both teenage girls. They're excellent students. They're very much involved with athletics, and both of them have some of the worst anxiety that are being treated for that now.
There's the school expectations, there's the athletic expectations, there's mom and dad's expectations, and then there's your expectations.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people who are super anxious or perfectionist, high achievers, their bars are set way higher than, again, what everybody else has set for them.
And you can't think outside of high school. You can't think of, well, whether I do this side of things or this side of things, I'm going to achieve the same life thing. That doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is achieving what I need to achieve this year or this week.
Right.
Or this minute.
And the big thing you run into in both middle school and high school is now everything is a popularity contest. I try and tell the kids as best I can, tell them straight up. I said, I'm more popular now here in school than I was when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah. I'm much more popular as a human being than now in high school.
And I said, so what happens in high school?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but there are going to be higher things that you're going to achieve in your life than who's dating who and who's going to ball or who's going to prom. And, you know, high school's important, but I think, especially again with social media, the bar has been raised.
Yeah.
And I just tell the kids, focus on you. Focus on you.
Yeah.
Focus on doing what's best for you, what's best for your family, and what's going to help you achieve your goals. Don't worry about anything else outside of that. Just focus on you.
It's such a hard concept to grasp. 4 years of high school seemed like forever.
Right.
And now 4 years just passes by like nothing.
Right. You know, I talk to parents now, seniors, and you're like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
And with this group, it's a very special group. This freshman class, when they came in, that was the year where they started out and, you know, we had all these things planned, and then March came and everything just stopped. Everything they knew stopped. And so did they miss that real first experience of the end of their freshman year. And then sophomore year came and it was a lot of like hybrid stuff, and we didn't even have athletics, and what we did have was so different than what we're used to. And then we came back last year, again, slightly normal, but, you know, again, the masks in schools, which I think with a lot of kids and their anxiety around that took away from that experience. And having to wear them at our, like I said, at our indoor athletics, wrestling, volleyball, indoor track, basketball, really was slightly detrimental to them.
Yeah.
And not being able to have that normalcy. This year is actually like their first going into this like normal. Okay, this is what high school is supposed to be like.
Right.
We're going to have a pep rally, and we're going to have a dance.
Pep rallies.
We're going to have prom. We're going to have ball. And, you know, we're going to have senior nights. And we're going to have get-togethers. And, you know, there's no spectator limit, and everybody can come.
Birthday gatherings and graduation gatherings.
So, you know, it's weird with this group. Like, they're a very special group of having gone through every kind of stage of this pandemic in school. And I talked to a lot of them. I was very close to this past year's senior class and this upcoming senior class. And, you know, we all had said, like, we wish we got to know each other a lot better because of the dynamic relationship we have. And, you know, this webinar I took said athletic trainers are different in a way that there's a less formal relationship. So we're very informal with the kids. I don't make them call me miss or anything like that. In fact, I tell them, like, you can call me Carla, you can call me coach, don't call me miss or anything like that. This is who we are. And that's how I grew up with my athletic trainers, is by a first name basis. Yeah. So that's how I am with these guys. And I do have to set boundaries, but I don't have to be so formal with them. When they're in the classroom, everything's formal.
You can have respect, but also a comfort level.
Right. With this class, again, we've been through so much together.
Yeah.
I say these are the guys. I had a lot of support getting this job, but this is the group that fought for me.
Yeah.
And had my back because I've always had their back. And I've had parents, and I was just asked this in an interview with the paper, said, we've known you for 12 years, and it seems no matter what, you can talk to the kids. I said, that's because I don't talk down to them. We talk together. I talk with them. I learn their language.
Yeah,
and
literally.
You know, I put boundaries up, but at the same time, we can also have a good time.
Right.
And it breaks down those barriers and allows them to have a safe space. I think that's great that they have somebody that they can trust and they can talk to. And it always goes back to, you never really know the kind of impact you have on somebody's life. When these kids come and tell you, you saved my life, you know, you're just like, what do you mean I saved your life? Well, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here right now. And it just makes you take a step back to say, okay, whatever I'm doing right.
Right.
But at the same time, it's I'm very methodical in how I approach talking to the kids.
Yeah.
Because I know at the end of the day, they could be having the roughest day of their life. So,
And you don't know that, right?
You don't. And I always said, I was always a big proponent. I know there's other people out there that don't. But I'll tape anybody that asks me to tape them. Mm-hmm. You know, if you want your ankle taped, I will make them do ankle rehab. It's 5 minutes. You can do it, guys. But that 2 minutes that I spend taping them is 2 minutes of time that we're having a conversation and I might be impacting their life. And it might be the only 2 minutes of their day where they get to feel normal. They're not being treated differently.
And they get maybe 2 minutes that someone they feel like it's kind of a therapy. Maybe that might be their psychological therapy for the whole day or week.
Right.
And
so
you don't know that. You got to take the time out for people, especially kids.
Right.
And you just never know what's going on in someone's head and how just being good to somebody or paying attention to them can make a good difference.
You know, I try and learn as much as I can about the kids when they talk to me. I go back to a conversation I had last summer with a kid, and he didn't think I knew who he was. He didn't think I remembered his name. He was afraid of me that freshman year. Because, you know,
I fear, right?
Yeah, because this is his first experience meeting me, and I'm out there at football practice telling the kids the do's and the don'ts. And if you do this, this is what's going to happen. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And you have to take your impact test. And if you don't pass your impact test, this is what's going to happen. Guys, we need to be quiet. You know, it was all these things. So he was afraid of me. And so when I saw him last summer, and I just asked him how he was doing, called him by his name, like it was something that just clicked in him. And then after that, he just said to me, you know, he'd just be like, hey, do you need help? Hey, you filling up those water coolers. You need help?
Yeah, he felt comfortable, but respectfully so.
Right. And then the season went on. I became super close with a lot of kids. It was just because I knew their name. I know their story.
Yeah.
And I'm always at, how are you doing today? How are you doing? That makes a big difference to them. And they laugh now. But I used to have a board in my office. I got to redo it now that I moved. But it said, you know, good day, bad day, day. And I tell the kids, listen, you don't have to have a great day. You don't necessarily have to have a bad day. We can just have a day.
Yeah.
And it's a good day.
Some days are just days.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's these things that, you know, you pick up on, and every minute spent is kind of a time spent well, especially when you're dealing with kids. We were saying that with this kind of extra or excess, sometimes kids are doing some risky behaviors, and you can pick up on that, like the kids that are overusing. We talked about this with concussions last time. There's also like the muscular overuse injuries, right? And we see that, and then some unhealthy weight and nutrition kind of behaviors too.
At school, it's always get lunch. And Amsterdam, I think a lot of districts around here are the free and reduced lunch. So I think everybody is provided with breakfast and lunch. Whether or not they choose to take it is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And I have athletes who will say, like, I don't like that food. Like, I don't want to eat that food. Okay, so what are we going to do to fuel your body? When I was with the Mohawks this summer, I had a couple of them, they were talking to a couple of my high schoolers about, dude, if you're going to go lift, like, this is how you have to do it. And if you're not going to eat, well, then you're not burning fat at that point. You're burning your muscle. So you're just, at that point, it's a lose-lose because you're not eating. So you're trying to gain muscle, but because you're not eating, you're losing muscle.
Yeah.
So
these are important things. Like, you need that energy and you need that protein to help build the muscle.
Right. So it's all about eating the right stuff.
The right things.
And even our soccer coach said last night when he was talking to the parents, you know, I get it, but McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, right before a game, probably isn't the best meal. The night before, have a good meal. Whether it's pasta or chicken or whatever, anything's got to be better than your fast food.
You're not getting those unhealthy fats and God knows what in the meat. You're getting complex carbohydrates. You're getting good protein and these things that you need to perform well. And these are the things that are good lessons for the parents and the kids.
Right. They always tell me I got to take them down. I said, I'm not taking them down because I know you guys. But I have 2 posters in my office that says, the harmful effects of marijuana and the harmful effects of alcohol. Yeah. I mean, I know kids will be kids, but at least if I put them up there, it's like, I'm telling you now, like, this is what can happen. We were all kids. We were all teenagers. I know what happens. And kind of laugh when I listen to Coach Griff because his famous saying to these kids is, I've been your age. You haven't been mine. Mm-hmm. So I know what you're going to do.
I love that. I've started using that after the last time you told me.
Yeah.
Because I see these teenagers and you're even preteens and tweens who think they just know it all. And
right.
They're sitting there arguing with me and the parent who are like triple their age.
Yeah. Like, we've been there. I know what can go wrong. And
yeah,
I'm just trying to give them the education behind it.
Right, exactly. And it's hard to listen when you want to do something a certain way, but we have to keep talking. Whether or not they listen.
They eventually listen. They eventually listen because they always come back and say, you were right. And I tell them it's not about being right. It's about protecting you.
It's about you. It's about the child.
I don't need to be right.
We're all here for the kids. It's not a easy job, especially when it comes to seeing them harm themselves or intentionally or unintentionally. We have to protect. I don't know if you see too much of this. Sounds like Amsterdam is a pretty socially healthy school district with the athletes, at least, but I don't know how realistic some of these Netflix shows like 13 Reasons and what. I always come back to that because it hit every single teenage point possible with mental health and harassment and suicide. But, some of this stuff does happen with the harassment and hazing and bullying and just rape and unhealthy competition. And then some coaches that aren't really the most trustworthy.
And it was interesting as over the summer, one of my friends had texted me and said they were watching this special on the mental health crisis in America. They said, hey, you should really watch this.
Yeah.
So I started watching it on the bus ride to and from our away games. And just watching this, like, really opened your eyes to things that were happening with our kids. And one of them was a coach who, I guess the kids, just prank called him. And they wouldn't say who it was. And nobody wanted to throw.
You prank call nowadays?
You can. You still can. The coach, alienated this kid and said, nobody on this team better sit with this kid. Nobody better talk to this kid. Don't associate with him. And, you think about all the things that you could do. It's a harmless prank.
Yeah, those are the things you did back in the day. And I mean, it's not the nicest thing to do, but it's not.
And then come to find out, the kid ended up committing suicide.
Oh, my God.
Because of this. And then you go back to, and just watching this, I mean, there was a kid as young as 9 saying that he was suicidal. And
they're getting younger every day. With
and and he had some gender identity issues. Yeah. But he knew when he was younger. Just watching this, your heart breaks. And then you sit there and you go, "I know a kid like that. I know a kid like that. I know a kid that does that."
Yeah.
And there were some interesting things that I didn't even know, where they said we're used to it, I guess, just being around athletics and guys and all this other stuff. But they were saying that now they consider punching walls and punching things is a form of self-mutilation. And I was just like, okay.
That's really interesting.
It was a pretty powerful documentary on PBS.
Yeah. Do you have the name of? There's so much to be said about that. The fact of the matter of, yes, this coach was angry, and yes, you shouldn't prank call people, and it's not a good habit, and this and that, but some of these behaviors are also like a cry for attention or help, because you don't just commit suicide off the bat. But there is a troubled person inside there.
Right.
Like we just said, being isolated, that is not the feeling you want to have, ever. Nobody wants it, but especially in this really mentally delicate age.
Yeah. So it's called Hiding in Plain Sight, Youth Mental Illness.
And where can you find it?
On PBS.
PBS, oh,
It's a 2-part series.
Do they have... I'm saying this because a lot of people don't have, just regular cable TV anymore. Does it say where you can stream it?
You can stream it right on the internet. Like if you type it in,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
how I found it.
Okay.
Because I don't have normal cable.
Yeah, no. I don't either.
I Googled it and I typed in the name and it popped up right on the PBS website, and I was just like, okay. It was, I think each part's like 2 hours or an hour and 45 minutes a piece. It was very eye-opening.
Very heavy and very worthwhile.
You know, and you talk to these people with addictions and, you know, how they fell into that. And so it was this started when I was 13, and here I am, I'm now 40, going through this.
Yeah.
So, they talk to kids who were, like I said, as young as 9. You know, then we had some teenagers, and then 20s, 30s, 40s, how they dealt with this their whole life.
People don't realize how early these things start. Like, now I'm glad people are more open about realizing and bringing forth their depressed or anxious kid much more than they would have before.
Right.
And it's good, and we think mental health is worsening. It is. It's also being more recognized, but suicide rates are going up because it is worsening. So I feel like we just keep trying to keep our head above water with this situation, but this awareness is really important. And this is why, again, sports is great, but then on the flip side, we don't want it to be a source of anxiety either.
Right.
Taking any kind of supplements to try to keep up with things, we can't have kids doing those things. The nutritional supplements you should take is, first of all, have a well-balanced diet.
Right. Well, with my football team, they're always like, oh, I want to take supplements, I want to take creatine. And I tell them no.
Yeah.
All our coaches will tell them no, based on their experience in the past, too. Like, you're going to get kidney stones.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
They're like, well, I want to get jacked quick. And I said, the only way to do that is hard work.
Hard work. Everything is hard work.
Get in the weight room. That's how it comes.
And it comes slowly but surely. You have to give your body time, and you have to be patient with yourself, but you have to be consistent. As a kid, too, like even losing weight or gaining muscle. I always say that with gaining muscle, I'm sure there's different apps and things, but getting to the weight you want to be, I tell the kids I use it if I ever, have a fitness goal, but it's My Fitness Pal. It's a free app. It's great. It tells you your nutrients, the macromolecules, the calories, and macromolecules being what percentage of your day did you eat. Proteins, carbs, and lipids, your 3 big macros. It's really helpful because it kind of tells you, okay, well, I didn't eat enough of this or that. It's a little bit different with kids and athletes, like how much they should be eating and what they should be eating. Do you know of any apps or websites to help kids with nutrients?
We basically use the MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
Gatorade has a lot of supplemental literature about what to do for athletes. In the past, they've had, okay, you're a football player, this is what your diet should consist of. Or you're a soccer player, this is what your diet should consist of. Or, hey, you're a vegetarian or you're vegan. These are foods that are going to give you what you need.
Yeah, it's really important, and kids can learn, too, about diet and, eating healthy at a young age, because you can basically eat what you want at a young age, but you really can't. Right. It's a lifestyle. Whatever you're working out for, whatever you're eating for, it's the way you eat. It's a lifelong journey. We'll wrap up with this portion of it. Like we talked about a lot of good things with how to stay healthy with it. The next piece we're going to talk infamous pre-participation sports physical. So thank you for now.